I'm Theo.
And I'm Juliet.
And this is Apologies Accepted.
We offer an entertaining look at some of the big issues in history by examining public apologies of the famous and infamous.
We're looking at politicians, serial killers, actors, and you.
Send us a public apology you would like to make, and we'll read it on the air and give you a chance to redeem yourself, or just get some guilt off your shoulders.
We're here for you. Once a week, maybe more if you're really, really sorry.
Hey, everybody.
I'm not Juliet.
And I'm not Theo. And this is Apologies
We have
Accepted,
to affirm who we are
the
not.
podcast. Yes, we have to tell ourselves who we're not just so we remember. And today we're talking about Brady Sluder. Yay! Now, if you don't recognize that name, that's fine, because I didn't know who he was until recently. But he is 6'3" and 185 pounds, a baseball playing graduate of Milford High School in Ohio. And he went on spring break in March 2020 after a pandemic had been declared. But before I talk more about Brady Sluder, let's talk about you, Theo. That's the most interesting part of the podcast.
Yes.
How has your week been?
My week has been great. It has been potty training, puppy training. That is it. So if you want to talk about dog pee, I got all the stories for you. Nobody wants to hear
Can
them.
we put a picture of your puppy up on the website? Because he is just the cutest thing I've ever seen.
We can, as soon as I can get him to sit still long enough for a photo. We're going to have to wait a couple of months for that, probably. But no,
he is the cutest golden doodle on the planet.
He is very sweet, and I'm working on nicknames for him, because in my family, you're not really a living, breathing member of the family until you have a nickname that is used only within the family, right? So in my family, I'm Beaver. I know, right? And I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you.
I never knew that. I can't believe it. 40 years and I didn't know that.
Oh, well, so nobody calls me Beaver now, but when I was 6 and under, right? Because I remember the trauma of going to first grade and telling Sister Christina that my name was Beaver, not Theodore, and that I needed to know how to write that. And she would not. We were working on learning our names, and
and she would not show you how to write Beaver.
Not for a second. And that witch hated me, and that's how I know that Satanists are real, because one of them taught me in the first grade.
They were all Satanists, all those nuns. They were so evil, most of them.
Oh my God, they were awful.
Unbelievably horrible.
Awful.
Child abuse, right and left.
If I see a nun to this day, and I left Catholic school in the third grade. Well, I didn't leave it. My mother pulled us out of Catholic school and stuck us in regular school, right?
Right.
I freeze up if I see a nun on the street. I'm like,
seriously?
Am I sitting up straight?
I know. What am I doing wrong?
Right. I am waiting for that ruler to come flying at me.
Man. Well, so much for our traumas.
Yes, exactly. And so much for my week. What about you? How's your week been? Has been good?
A typical pandemic week, I did absolutely nothing except work. I have nothing to complain about and nothing to be happy about in particular, except that I survived another week without getting COVID. I'm probably going to go to Arizona in early April if I get myself together enough, because I don't know when the vaccine is going to happen here for people my age without any health issues. So I'm gonna go to Arizona and try to get it there.
Absolutely. I'm telling you right now, little rural towns are the secret.
That's
you have
where
to
my
drive
house is.
2 hours.
Tiniest town on the planet. Yep.
Well, and maybe because it's Border Patrol, because Border Patrol sort of like dominates that town, there may not be any vaccines available in that little town.
Why not?
But because all being used on Border Patrol.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
I was thinking that would make it there would be more vaccines available because Border Patrol was getting
vaccinated.
And there might be
but
who knows? We'll see.
What do I know about anything ever? Right. I think that's really what we're learning in this podcast.
Yeah. Same for me.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you've had an average week and that nothing horrible happened. And, the good things are yet to come. I really feel that. I feel like by this summer. Oh my God, yeah, I have to tell you. So I cried during Joe Biden's presidential speech.
Oh.
Like several times. I was just sitting there and he would say something and I'd be like, oh my God, it's over.
Wow.
Like hearing an insane maniac go on and on about how great he is over. This man is talking about actually getting things done that impact me directly.
Right.
And his empathy, oh God, I just couldn't. Anyway, we'll let it go.
Thank God for Joe Biden.
Thank God for Joe Biden. And I never thought I was ever say those words.
I know. I was never a big fan of Joe Biden, but I mean, compared to what happened before, he's
Jesus
like a god.
I'd fucking vote for what's that mayor in McDonald's called? Mayor McCheese? I'd vote for Mayor McCheese for president.
I would too. I think most of us would, except the crazy ones who aren't listening to this podcast anymore anyway. So.
Or are they? So might be hate listening.
We'll find out. Maybe we'll get a review of some sort. Even if it's a bad one, we'll get a review.
Listen, I'm just going to put it out there right now. Anybody that reviews our podcast, you're getting a review back.
You're getting a free puppy.
Oh, yeah. That's the bigger threat. You're right.
So Brady Sluder, as I mentioned, he's a baseball playing graduate of Milford High School in Ohio, and he went on spring break in March 2020 after a pandemic had been declared. And he said, if I get corona, I get corona, he said in a March 19th, in a video that quickly went viral. That same day, by the way, California had issued a statement, a statewide stay-at-home order. Brady said, though, at the end of the day, I'm not going to let it stop me from partying. We've been waiting for Miami spring break for a while. About 2 months we've had this trip planned, 2-3 months, and we're just out here having a good time. Whatever happens, happens. Sluder, described by the Washington Post as an aspiring SoundCloud rapper, was recorded in Miami in a clip shown on various national media outlets, including The Today Show, and his quote was reported later in the USA Today and the Washington Post. His video came amid backlash against Florida beachgoers who continued to pack the beaches, ignoring social distancing guidelines designed to stop the spread of the virus. And as the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, not one of my favorite people, was criticized for not closing the state's public beaches during spring break, as well as refusing to issue a statewide stay-at-home order. Molly, a student at the University of Pittsburgh, who asked NBC News to only use her first name, saw Sluder's video and said she had a lot of feelings about it. She felt it was really ignorant and selfish, but she said most people are ignorant and selfish, especially at like 18 to 22 years old. Molly, 22, went on spring break before the pandemic was declared.
Outside of the range of stupidity that she established. Molly, you are my spirit animal.
She's awesome. She went on spring break before the pandemic was declared, which happened during her trip. At the time of the video, she said, I don't think most people were considering the gravity of a pandemic, and I think that needs to be taken into account before we shame and ridicule these people, including her.
Okay, hold on. So we have to take some things into account, and then we can ridicule.
Yes, let's. Oh, I thought you were going to say some things.
Oh, no, I'm not. I was just taking a moment to hold some things into account so that if I ridicule Molly later, I can say, well, I followed your advice, Moll, and like I'm there. But no, because these words that she is saying, I could be saying. Like, totally. I totally get this.
Yeah, she's right. She's only 22, but she's right. So I think you have some background information, though, for us on Brady.
Yeah, I do. And so all right. So I have a couple of things about the situation, right? So first of all, it was not only spring break, it was St. Patrick's Day. Oh, yeah. March 17th, 2020.
I thought it was March 19th. Oh, I could be wrong.
Well, all I can say is that, so here's what happened, right? This is why I think this event happened on March 17th. I did not research it that much. I just took what one girl said as being the date, right? And she was from New Orleans, so she knows holidays, right? But then their holidays do tend to run over a couple of days, so maybe it was 19th.
Could be.
But okay, so whatever. It's St. Patrick's Day week. Well, let's say that, right?
Right.
It's spring break. And CBS National News, this wasn't even like the local news. This is like CBS Evening News, had gone down to Fort Lauderdale to do what's happening with spring break and coronavirus, right? And they happened upon poor Brady Slutter. And he says what he says, right? What he said wasn't any more stupid or short-sighted than what anybody else they interviewed in that segment said.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And as proof, I present Shelby Cordell. This will be a direct quote. And I'm going to try and do it in Shelby's voice, right?
Okay.
So pardon me.
Shelby's a she?
Shelby is a she. She's very much a she, I will say.
Okay. All right.
Right? And so, yeah, we planned this trip a long time ago. It was kind of up in the air if we would still go, but like, we're here. I just turned 21 this year, so I'm here to party. So it's kind of disappointing, but we're just making the most of it. We met these other people in our little Airbnb spot, so we're just hanging out with them and trying to get drunk before everything closes. Shelby is a musician.
Oh.
And she has several albums out on SoundCloud and Spotify, as does our boy, Brady. Brady Slutter?
Wow.
I keep wanting to call him Shelby because she's hypnotic. She is Dayglow, cotton candy, pop music. Do you you watch the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills?
I have seen it, yes.
You have seen it, right? If I said Erica Jane, would you be like, oh, yeah?
No.
Oh, gosh, you haven't seen it in a few years then?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. So if I said, I'm trying to think of another version of it, but imagined a watered down Mariah Carey.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like that. Very poppy. Okay. I went in expecting her music to be horrible. And surprise, surprise, it wasn't great, but it's slightly mockable.
It's fine.
Right? But in that way that I could mock anything on the radio. So
right, sure.
I was a little bit surprised. As I was with our boy, Brady, right? I keep calling him our boy.
He is our boy. I feel like he's like a son to us.
He's 22, and he just wandered in front of a camera, and he said what he said.
Hell. Yeah.
He wasn't any worse than anybody else there, right?
Yeah,
he's the only one that said, if I get corona, I get corona, right?
Right.
And let's see. So I did look a little bit into Brady's background. Not much there, which is fine. And also very standard, very generic. He could be any one of my cousins or any one of my cousins' children or any one of my cousins' grandchildren. You can stop me at any point. No. There's
no way. I was thinking,
Yeah, I was going to go to great grandchildren and see if you would stop me there. All right, cool.
I'd just be like, sure.
And so Brady's 22. He's from Milford, Ohio. And Milford was founded in 1796. So, all-American city, right? Little tiny place. It's in Ohio along the Little Miami River. It's part of the greater Cincinnati metropolitan area, population of 6,000 people, right? There are 5 ethnic groups. It's 91% white. It's 3% non-Hispanic. It's 2% Black or African American. It's like
3%
less than
non-Hispanic?
Yeah, 2+% non-Hispanic.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm kind of skimming this. So, Juliet, I will tell you exactly that white non-Hispanic comprises 91.8% of the town. White Hispanic, I probably skipped over that, was 3% of the town. 2% is non-Hispanic, no explanation. Black or African American people are just over 1%, and then Asian people are less than 1%. Wow. 0% of the people speak non-English as a language.
Really?
Yeah.
So, I don't believe that.
I mean, according to Wikipedia,
jeez,
or a degree so immeasurable that nobody can calculate the number.
What a weird place to live that would be.
99% of the population are U.S. citizens. So it's Trump country is what I'm saying. Right? In my mind, like maybe it's not.
Right.
Maybe there's flags of AOC on every street pole, but there's not. And the town, when first surveyed by John Nancarrow in 1788, he said, oh, wait, no, he didn't say it. This is somebody who wrote a book in 1880. Sorry, okay, this is boring, but I get to say this fun word. Okay. So this is a quote from a book by Lewis Everts in 1880 explaining this town, Milford, right? No wonder, then, that it struck with rapture the quaint and eccentric John Nancarrow, who had surveyed it on May 28, 1788, as Dutch Burgermeister, intended to found a city that should become the future metropolis of the West. And, that whole Western expansion period, every fucking square foot of America that was discovered was going to become the future gateway to the West, the future metropolis of the West, right? So not a surprise that in the 1800s, people thought that Milford was going to become this place. It did not. So he's from that town. And in that town, nothing bad happens. There's no COVID. There's no coronavirus. Of course you go on spring break. And of course you go to Florida. Why not?
Right. Where else would you go?
Where else would you go? And so, as you can tell, I have a lot of sympathy for Brady because I have been Brady many, 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 many times in my life where I just said the dumbest thing ever, but it's how I was feeling in that moment. Sure. 5 days later, Brady issued his apology. And so that's kind of it for Brady. That's kind of it for his background. But I did go to his Instagram account and I did find out that he's a musician, which was surprising to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I listened to some of his music.
You did?
I did.
I didn't even think about doing that.
And it's because I'm a better student than you are.
You're a stalker is what you are.
Oh no. Believe me, Brady's not. Anybody that I could have babysat?
Babysat?
Babysat. Thanks. I actually teach English sometimes online to people.
It's funny because it's true.
It's funny because it's true. Those poor people are babysitted everybody. So I listened to Brady's music, and that's just not a genre I'm into, right?
Yeah,
it's got to be really exceptional to hit my radar.
Sure.
But I know that you are. And so I thought we would take some sort of a little commercial break, a clicker break, if you will, so that you can listen to it. And everybody, I would encourage you to go on to Spotify or Apple Music or SoundCloud or wherever you go.
Check out Brady.
And look for Slud One because that's his artist name.
Uh-huh.
All right. So let's take our break.
Okay. That wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It wasn't. His rapping is not horrible.
It was not the music horrible.
It's not my kind of rap, but it's not bad. I mean, it's not bad.
Yeah. I'm there with you.
For a white guy from a 91%, 99% white town, pretty good. Gotta say.
Yep.
I don't think I would choose to listen to it, but overall, I give props to Brady Sluder, whatever his name is.
Well, hey, you're 22, you're starting your thing, you're doing your thing, you're artistic and all that. So that is cool. I'm all into that. Hats off.
Yeah.
Amazing. I will say the song's called If I Never Make It, the song I had you listen to. Mm-hmm. You need a little more confidence there, dude. It's like,
yeah.
And my other very strong criticism is it's Eminem-esque.
Yeah, right.
I have heard this before.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And so good, that you're following Eminem's path, but and I every writer who ever starts off imitating another writer.
Yep. And he's only 22, so he's kind of got to do that. He's not got any real life experiences or anything yet.
From Milford, Ohio? Right.
So.
Exactly. I mean, if he wants to write a Stephen King, Children of the Corn, he's probably got that sort of experience.
That. But I mean, he talks about loving his parents in the rap, and that's kind of where you're coming from.
Nobody who raps loves their parents.
But I'm sure his parents were thrilled. So.
Well, I mean, hey, you know what? He's out there. He's on SoundCloud. He's on Spotify.
Yeah.
And so I did want to take a quick look. I wanted you to hear that because I wanted to give him a real shot at impressing you. Or that's his music, right? But the intro to that album is where he talks a little bit in a very roundabout way about his experience in Fort Lauderdale and his national embarrassment as the face of is he a Zoomer? He must be a Zoomer. He wouldn't be a millennial, right?
Oh, a Zoomer. What? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't, and I'm Gen X, so I don't care.
He might be Alpha, Generation Alpha. I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
No, there can't be.
He's 22.
Who cares?
Yeah, right. Who cares?
Right. Who cares? But so from his intro, and the reason I didn't have you listen to the intro is it's very clunky, it's very childish, it's very sincere, and we like to mock things like that. So you had a chance to listen to his real music. I'm making this super long. Why am I doing that? Because I don't want to read this next bit. Here we go. Right, and mind you, Eminem ripoff. So it's spoken, not rapped. From his intro, it's been one hell of a ride. Let me just say that 2019 was crazy. 2020 was just worse. I've been through a lot this year. I've learned a lot. It's time to put in that work and show everybody what I've been doing. I've been locking myself in my basement 4 and 5 hours a day, just trying to make this album. I know I've been distant lately, but I promise you all that I'm back and I'm here to stay. It's time to push out with that old and push in with that new. You hear me. Everything is a mindset. Everything is your headspace. However you are feeling, whatever is down, whatever is bad, you got to find a way to push out that love and energy. And then it goes into a rap, which I am very specifically not going to do. So I like the words.
Yeah, it seems like a good kid.
I like the feeling, right? It's intelligent person here, says some good things. Eminem imitative.
Right.
Cool. That seems to be my harshest criticism. Don't imitate Eminem. One.
I don't think it's that imitative of Eminem because Eminem is so good. But I understand your point. So
I'll just say if Eminem's artistic name had been Marshall Mathers, this would be the music that he would be doing as Marshall Mathers. Well, he did do music
under Marshall Mathers.
I've never heard of that, so it must have been there. So it's proving my point. I'm even righter.
Yeah. So speaking of his intro where he talks about what he's been through in 2020, he certainly was shamed and ridiculed by a number of people. And as a result, pretty quickly after the video went viral, I think just like 4 days, he apologized on his Instagram. And his apology, which I have right here, if I can pull it up, it says, "I would like to sincerely apologize for the insensitive comment I made in regards to COVID-19 while on spring break. I wasn't aware of the severity of my actions and comments. I'd like to take this time to own up to the mistakes I've made and apologize to the people I've offended. Like many others, I have elderly people who I adore more than anything in the world and other family members who are at risk, and I understand how concerning this disease is for us all. Our generation may feel invincible, like I did when I commented, but we have a responsibility to listen and follow the recommendations in our communities. I will continue to reflect and learn from this and continue to pray for our well-being. I deeply apologize from the bottom of my heart for my insensitivity and unawareness of my actions." And that was his Instagram apology. And then not only did he say that, but he went and commented on his Instagram to that apology, saying, "I've done a lot of things in my life that I'm not proud of. I've failed, I've let down, and I've made plenty of mistakes. I can't apologize enough to the people I've offended and the lives I've insulted. I'm not asking for your forgiveness or pity. I want to use this as motivation to become a better person, a better son, a better friend, and a better citizen. Listen to your communities and do as health officials say. Life is precious. Don't be arrogant and think you're invincible like myself. I've learned from these trying times, and I felt the repercussions to the fullest. Unfortunately, simply apologizing doesn't justify my behavior. I'm simply owning up to my mistakes and taking full responsibility for my actions. Thank you for your time, and stay safe, everyone. Heart.
I know we're not talking about the apology yet, or I guess maybe we are now.
We can.
All right, cool. Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I feel for you, Guy.
That was a good apology.
Terrible.
That was a good apology. The thing that frustrates me about this podcast is that we look at people's apologies, but we can't tell if they've gone on after the apology to improve. So, like, I looked up Brady Sluder to see if he went on spring break this year or was going on spring break this year, and I couldn't find anything. And he's a private citizen, and that's fine. He deserves to be anonymous. But anonymous, whatever. But
I mean, he's a recording artist.
Well, that's true. He's a recording artist. He wants to be famous.
Figure.
So maybe you're right.
Oh shit! And we're podcasters. No, he's totally a private citizen, and everybody needs to leave him alone.
That's right. Everything I've ever done is now up for examination by the public.
Oh Jesus, isn't it?
So I think that was a great apology.
That one time in band camp.
Yeah, right.
Right.
He hits all the buttons for the apology. He says he's sorry. He takes full responsibility for his actions. He says what he's going to do to be a better person. He says he wants to be a better person. He's not trying to, as he says himself, he's not trying to justify his behavior. And that's pretty much everything that makes a good apology. So the only thing that we can't tell is if he actually did do anything to follow up on this. But, I'm guessing he probably has.
Well, I'll say that it came out in his intro. You can feel that he's processing that experience, and that what he's learned is sometimes in the face of adversity, your only strength comes from within.
Yes, right.
And that will be on our T-shirt.
Right.
You're welcome,
Yet
America.
Another T-shirt from.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, right, totally.
So
100%.
Yeah, good for you, Brady. We like you. We like what you did. We like your rap pretty much. Considering that you're only 22, and we're not rap experts, so we're not medical.
You're more. I'm not.
I know
at
more
all.
about rap than you do. Yeah, I'll admit that.
You're way.
So, but not only are we not rap
and
experts,
I wouldn't brag if I were you about that.
I just said we're not rap experts, and you're the one who said I was. So
therefore you are.
Therefore I am. So not only are we not rap experts, but we're not medical experts either, unless you've gotten your medical degree in the last week. Have you gotten your medical degree? I haven't.
I actually completed it last year. I mean, how dare you? Oh my God,
online?
No, of course not. Yeah, ITT Tech.
Yeah. Well, ITT is, I was just reading how, is it ITT or IIT is a big thing in India. It's IIT. It's a different thing.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
ITT, all of those degrees were completely worthless.
Yeah,
and there's a whole lawsuit thing that's happening around them.
Oh my God.
They used to advertise on TV as a legitimate university too, so.
Wow.
Dang.
We should have started a university. Too late now.
It only cost $7 million. I mean, if you'll remember.
We can get some loans. So anyway, speaking of not being medical experts, it seems to me that back to spring break, it's not the outside going to the beach aspect of spring break that's a problem, but the restaurants and the bars and eating and drinking inside. So last year during spring break, there were some restrictions against restaurants and bars in Florida, but this year they're actually required to be open at least 50%. Last year, people were calling for Governor DeSantis to close the beaches in Florida too, but that probably wasn't necessary given our current understanding that transmission is likely outside with social distancing, but that wasn't necessarily understood at the time. There was a lot of nervousness and uncertainty around transmission. So the key thing is that Governor DeSantis really refused to do anything about COVID at the time. And as we'll see, he's doing even worse this year. COVID is now
he's furthered the politicization of a public health crisis.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. COVID has now killed over 500,000 Americans, I think 530,000 approximately now. And the CDC has recommended against all travel, but similar pictures and videos of spring breakers as to last year with no masks or social distancing in sight are being seen again. Even as Florida hit a peak number of new cases in January, the state has been in its third phase of reopening since September, meaning restaurants and bars can be opened at least 50% capacity. And an executive order from the governor, Ron DeSantis, who is, of course, a Republican, actually bans local COVID-19 emergency orders from reducing the capacity of bars to below 50%, except in rare exceptions. And local governments also cannot enforce mask mandates, which has pissed off some mayors in the state. But how much to relax restrictions is confusing for me. California is lifting restrictions in 13 counties in the state beginning today, which is March 14th, and another 13 counties are expected to move out of restricted tiers by Wednesday. LA County hospitalizations are at the lowest point in 4 months, with hospitalizations under 1,000. But that is after the surge from the holidays. There are 3,250 people hospitalized statewide in California, which is a drop of more than 85% since the peak around 22,000 in early January. But this doesn't even take into account what's known as long COVID, and there are estimates that 24%. That's almost a quarter of women with COVID-19 and 21% of men continue to experience symptoms 5 weeks after they tested positive for the virus, and nearly 10% had symptoms 12 weeks later. And those just aren't necessarily symptoms like the flu. Those are symptoms like lung failure or kidney failure or something like that. I mean, it's some serious shit. So
it's quite, I mean... It's just that gamble of, okay, I might get it and maybe I'll be asymptomatic. And of course, nobody ever thinks they are going to die. So if you get COVID, you're the one that will be asymptomatic, right?
Of course.
You won't be the one that's in the hospital for 9 months.
Right. And you won't be the one going home and giving it to your grandparents or even your kids. I mean, there's like some percentage now. I think there's like 1,000 people dying a week who are between 16 and 24 or something. I don't know what the ratio or what the numbers are, but it's terrible. So reopening this week in those 13 California counties are malls, indoor dining, gyms, churches, nail salons, massage parlors, museums, zoos, and movie theaters. And they've based this on the number of COVID cases per 100,000. But that doesn't seem to take into account that as people go back to gyms, restaurants, and nail salons without vaccinations,
it's going to fucking spread.
Exposure will go up and the case number will increase. And my friend says people are going to lick doorknobs because they are Americans and they believe in freedom. And our Governor Newsom, said on Wednesday that at least over the next few weeks, access to vaccines would remain scarce. So as I found out, it's impossible to get a vaccination practically. And I'm not of the age that is currently being vaccinated, but even if I go in and look pretending that I'm 65 and over, I can't get an appointment. So I don't know how anybody's doing it right now. It's really hard to get vaccinated here. And in other states, people are vaccinating everybody. I think like in Texas now you can get vaccinated. Is that right? No matter who you are?
Well, so I don't quite know the answer to that, which is weird because this is where I live and I've been vaccinated. So I know that they just reduced it to people 50 years and older. But there's an issue in Austin where there's not enough vaccines, so they're not even out of the 1B category, which is like age and comorbidities.
Right.
And so, right. However, like I've said, I know 4 people who have driven an hour and a half outside of Austin to a small rural town to get vaccinated. No problem. Loads of vaccine, tons of appointments.
Are they still like sticking it to the blue states and the blue cities, do you think? Or why do you think Austin is having trouble getting vaccines?
Oh, great question. Well, I think vaccines are now being distributed through a federal plan, so I wouldn't imagine that there's any political shadiness going on.
Yeah.
Unlike in Florida, where the vaccines went out to the wealthiest communities, and DeSantis is, I mean, there's going to be so many political hearings about what politicians did and the corruption and the blah and the political favoritism and all that. I don't think that's what's happening in Austin. I also don't know because the minute I got my shot, I just quit paying attention.
Thank God. I'm so glad you got vaccinated. Yeah, I've been trying to find out why the vaccines are so hard to come by in California, and there are no news articles about it that I can find. And I find that really interesting. Why is no one tracking down why we can't get vaccinated? But But in any event, there are still more than 65,000 new cases a day on average in the United States, which is similar to last summer. So we're not really going down. We're just going down from the surge. And there are now more contagious variants of the virus in the country. So it's likely that the case counts will go upwards again. And the director of the CDC, whose name is Rochelle Walensky, said earlier this month that she was really worried about the rollbacks of restrictions in some states. And she said that with the decline in cases stalling, so the decline in cases has gone down since the surge, but is not going down further than last year's numbers. And with variants spreading, quote, we stand to completely lose the hard-earned ground we have gained, unquote. And as of now, 11% of people in the U.S. are fully vaccinated, and only 21% have received even one dose. So it's not at a point where there's herd immunity, and it's still not safe. And I don't know why things are being opened up again. It's really frustrating to me to see this happening. It just seems stupid. And I guess the reason is because for financial reasons.
Well, I mean, we've gone this far, right? And I just kind of feel like, wow, if we could just hold off for like another
month
4
or
weeks.
Something, right?
Yeah.
Things will be much better.
That.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? And so my fear, and I think this is a fear that's shared by everybody, is that with all of this being footloose and fancy free, a new variant's going to get cooked up. There's already a variant that's a combination of British and South African variant, which I think I'm loving using this word cooked up, so I'll just keep using it. That was cooked up in California.
Oh, yeah.
And there's some other variant in New York, I think, that I just recently heard about this recently, as in this morning, on a political news podcast. So they didn't go into like, what's this New York variant and whatever. Just kind of like, I don't know. And here's what I think, right? Why are they doing it? Why are they opening everything up? Is it for the economy? Sure. Right. Probably. But then I think there's also just some calculus that's going on where it's like, you know what, for a week, we're going to have some people running around getting sick. Oh, the infection rate's going to go up.
Dying.
But we're going to have tons of vaccine in 2 weeks. Yeah. So, all right, why not, right? They kind of probably feel like they're at the races, the gate's getting ready to lift. That's not a metaphor that makes any sense at all, but that's kind of what I think. And then the other thought is that, government's controlled by humans, and our political overlords are just as tired as we are of being locked in and locked down.
But I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving my house. I mean, I'm supposed to go to the pharmacy today to pick up a prescription, but I don't think I'm going to do it because I'm just sick of going to the pharmacy for one thing. But it's not particularly safe to go into businesses. So maybe I'm extra cautious.
Businesses where sick people go.
Right?
Totally. Right? I mean, yeah, our doctor caught COVID. James went to see our physician for his annual checkup, and James came back and said, yeah, I saw our doctor, and he caught COVID.
What?
And I was not surprised.
Well, no. I mean, no, of course not.
Because he spends all day with sick people.
Exactly. Yeah. How could he not catch COVID? I mean, how does everyone in the medical industry not have COVID is my question. Yeah.
And so I totally appreciated the COVID update. It sounds a little not sensitive to say. That's like the weather update.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, how you just explained how there's this reduction in mandates, rules, laws,
restrictions.
Yeah, right. And the potential next wave that could create. Yeah. And something that I don't want to think about.
Right.
So I'm going to talk about something completely unrelated to COVID.
All right. Let's do that.
I'm going to talk about, I am going to talk about my feelings, because I would say in all of us, Brady, I totally accept your apology.
Yeah, totally.
Fine. We'll
On
rate
a scale
it
of
eventually.
1 to 10, let's do it now. 1 to 10.
I give it a 10. It's a solid 9.
I give it a 10.
All right, cool. We're both at the high end of the spectrum. And it's not a PR move because, again, this is my ignorance of the rap industry, but I would expect that within that industry, you wouldn't apologize for breaking a law or, living your life. Right.
Necessarily. So, you'd be like, man, I'm doing my thing.
genuine and sympathetic. But I do hold CBS News accountable. And a couple of things here, I'll be interested on your thoughts. Right?
Okay.
So, number one, yeah, the news has the right to go and report the news. And it is news that a ton of people are in spring break mode at the beginning of a epidemic, pandemic, crisis, whatever, right? When things are starting to get shut down. And so I'm going to try and knit some points together here. This is going to sound real all over the place, hopscotchy, but I'm going to get there. Let's see if I do, and then you can judge me and tell me, like, you beautiful quilt you knitted, Theo.
You don't knit quilts, Theo.
All these disparate points. So, spring break, it feels like this American tradition, this rite of passage. If you go to college, you get to go on spring break. You get spring break, right?
Sure.
And I spent mine sitting at home getting drunk watching the BBC.
Sure.
Because I was 40.
Sure.
When I went to college, right? That's what I did. Other people go places and do things, right? So spring break really didn't officially start until 1938 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And why Fort Lauderdale?
Why Fort Lauderdale?
In 1928, Fort Lauderdale built an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And university swim teams would meet in Florida to use that pool. Because you're breeding. You're not breeding a lot of Olympic champions. You're training. That's the word I wanted to use that ends in ing. Jesus. Your swim coach takes you to the big swimming pool that happens to be in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Along with a couple of other dozen universities that also have swim teams.
Yeah.
And this built into this athletic collegiate scene that happened during spring break week. Well, so not so much a party, right? Because these are athletes, and these are athletes there to train. They're
serious,
athletes who are swimming. That sure, when you're 20, you can go out and get totally plastered, and the next day you can wake up and you are perfectly fine. And I am just going to say, Gen Z, enjoy it while it lasts, because that shit goes away.
Yeah.
And then if you so much as look at a glass of wine on Wednesday night, you're hungover on Thursday. And by look, I mean drink. And by glass, I mean bottle. So let's see. I have to derail myself a little bit here because it's going to get a little lectury, but not really. So by 1938, the swim team scene was big, and friends of the athletes were going with their athletic friends to watch them compete in these non-official swim training meets, right? Yay, University of Nebraska beat Iowa. Yay, the University of New Mexico beat some other, yay, right? Cool. And the friends who aren't athletes are the ones who are going out partying and meeting people and having fun, right? And so that sort of starts Fort Lauderdale as becoming this hotspot for university students to go on spring break. Then in 1960, there was a movie release called Where the Boys Are, which is, we've all seen it. And if you haven't seen it, you should see it, because I think, does a girl get pregnant in there?
God, I don't know. It's been so long since I've seen it. I have no idea what happens.
Let's just say that Where the Boys Are is going to have some moral about how you shouldn't go on spring break, and only whores go. Only whores wear bikinis.
Oh, my God.
Becky, everybody knows that. Okay, so Where the Boys Are was a coming-of-age film that followed 4 college women during their spring vacation. And just like everything in postmodern society, reality reflects art. Spring break became a really big deal, and in 1986, MTV launched its Spring Break special from Daytona Beach, Florida.
When was that?
And
86?
In 86.
Okay, I remember that.
I totally remember that because we were in high school, and MTV was the only thing I watched.
We were not in high school in 1986.
Oh, you're right. It was
after high school.
It was after high school, but then just barely.
Yeah.
Why do I think I remember beach party stuff when I was in high school? But you're totally right.
Girls Gone Wild? Was that a thing?
Oh my God, we graduated before 1986.
Shut up.
mother.
Let's move on.
Yes. Okay. All right. So spring break gets kind of institutionalized into American culture. It's 90 years old around by 2021, right?
Yeah. 100
Nearly.
almost.
Almost 100, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird that 1938 doesn't sound that long ago to me. But then when I start doing some math. Yeah. But okay, so it's an American tradition, and it plays to young people getting their freedom from university, and it's again a rite of passage. There's also at the same time layered into this story this idea of, I call it the mortality gland, but that's not it. That's just what I call it, right?
Yeah.
And it's the fact that the prefrontal cortex continues to develop until you're 25. And that's a sliding scale. So for some people, development happens a bit earlier, 21. For some people, it's later. 25, right? You're somewhere within there. And the prefrontal cortex is responsible for risk assessment. And so that's why 17-year-olds will skateboard down the freeway backwards wearing dark at midnight because whatever, right? It explains why we being adults say teenagers feel invincible and they don't understand they can hurt themselves, right? And that's why a lot of teens get hooked on drugs and do very risky things just simply because the part of the brain that says cost-benefit analysis, oh, I'm going to hurt myself, isn't there really fully developed, right? Maybe intellectually you could say, aha, if I were to jump off of a 25-foot cliff, I might break my leg. But emotionally, you don't believe that. You're going to spring up like Superman, and it's going to be great. It's going to be the most awesome fucking jump of all time. Right?
And now I won't go down the stairs.
With both hands on the rail.
That's right.
Inch by inch, like fucking right. Everest in my household.
And I have to have socks with grippy feet.
I live in a house of 80 stairs. Oh, that's a good idea, actually. Hold on to that. That's a great idea. Okay, so we've got these kids who are really essentially kids. They don't quite fully understand what it is they're doing because their brains not everybody's brain is at the same stage of development, right? They're legally adults, so they are allowed to go out in public and they're allowed to drink, right?
Yes.
And then, because they're adults. And CBS News goes down and turns on a camera and interviews these kids, right? And these kids get a lot of internet anger directed at them. Shelby Cordell, who I mocked earlier in our podcast for being a cotton candy pop star, and I mean she is. She's a very cartoony look. Her caricature, her performance, right, is very blonde, blown out hair, pink, whatever, right? I mean. Sweetheart Princess of Pop is what she's going for. And her voice is fine. It's way better than my voice. And she received hate mail. She received direct messages on Twitter. She got things like, she should die. Her parents should die. She should die on the street. They shouldn't give her a bed in the hospital if she gets ill. Right. Yeah. And that's hurtful. That's harmful, of course, right? And so Brady and Shelby, young kids, brains aren't there, drinking, right? The news is going around asking people what they think. And here's where I take exception to all this, right? For a news crew to go around and ask a bunch of 20-year-olds what they think, that's honestly like if I went out onto a playground and asked a bunch of third graders their opinions on ending world hunger, right?
Well,
like the solution would be a shower of candy and cookies across the globe, and then everybody would die of diabetes. And the third graders would just be like, listen, you asked us to fix this, and if you don't like candies and cookies, you don't have to eat them. You're welcome for your diabetes.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah, I know that went nowhere. We might have to click part of that out. It didn't land as strongly as I was hoping. I was really forcing that in there. I've learned a lesson. Sorry, America. But yeah, so So that's kind of that. I mean, I really feel like it's the news.
I think that it's unfair to ask drunk people their opinion on anything of any age. And I also think it's, I'm not going to start a campaign to require the news to make sure no one's drunk before they ask them any questions. But
I'll take down that webpage then.
I do think it's unfair. And I also think that under 18, you probably shouldn't be interviewed. And maybe you can't be legally, I don't know, without your parents' permission. But over 18, you're legally an adult. And I think, I remember when I was 18 and 21, and while I wasn't fully functioning as an adult, I think I was functioning enough to take responsibility for myself. So I'm going to say it's okay to interview those people, but not if they're drunk.
Right. I'll say that. And yeah, I think that's really the big issue there. It was taking advantage of people who were in a state that, had they been sober, would they have said the same things?
Yeah, maybe
to
not.
their friends.
Right.
But maybe not to a news camera.
I mean, they were clearly on spring break, so they were going to defend it no matter what. But they probably wouldn't have said it on live television. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the future of spring break, according to, who was it in Fort Lauderdale? Let's see here. He sounded like he would know. The future spring break is grayer. So, here we go. We don't want to see a repeat of last year, said Steve Hayes, President and Chief Executive Officer of Visit St. Pete Clearwater, to the tourist board for St. Petersburg, right? What we want is a picture that says what a difference a year makes. So there's going to be stricter limits on group gatherings, mask mandates, restrictions at hotels and restaurants and bars. They're still going to allow people out. And kind of the idea is that we've been all living a year in a pandemic. And so social distancing is just now more a matter of course for more Americans than it was last March.
Oh, yeah.
But also more and older people have been vaccinated. And the number one thing they want to do is travel.
Yes. And you know what? That's so unfair because I want to travel. And when this is over, I do not want to travel with hordes of other people who want to travel. I want to travel by myself. So it's so unfair that right now, when nobody's traveling, is the perfect time to travel, but you can't.
Right.
So as soon as this is all done, as it gradually becomes safer to travel and people start traveling, it's just going to get more and more crowded. And I would say for the next year after the pandemic, it's just going to be impossible to get flights because everyone's going to want to fly, or it's going to be thousands of dollars.
Awful. And right now, I could fly from Austin to LA for $50.
Probably, yeah.
On a real airline.
On a real airline, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. If only it were safe to fly, I would totally be going everywhere. But it's just not possible, and that's why
I have airline friends, and they are gonna. It's totally safe. They're circulated. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, bullshit.
No, not doing it. Sorry, it's a metal tube with recycled air.
Yeah,
no.
Safe. No. So anyway, who's sorry now, Theo?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, I am sorry now. I like my. I say this every podcast by now. I'm sure everybody knows. I like a theme. So I traveled during COVID restrictions. I drove from here out to California. And although I did wear a mask, because, listen, I'm not trying to die, everybody. So when I say I traveled, I didn't like spring break it in a group of 1,000 people. I went to a friend's home and we wore masks inside for 3 days before we got bored with it. And we were like, all right, listen, if we die, we die. Don't tell anybody. And it's not so much that I shouldn't have done that, but I'll say that like I don't throw stones at people who do that. Mm-hmm. I throw stones at people who do that and don't wear a mask and don't socially distance and seem to just really want to catch COVID or spread it around. So that's where I would say I'm different than them. But at the same time, I think a purist might say, hey, no, you're not. You're also an asshole. You should have stayed home. So I will just apologize to the purist out there and fuck you for calling me an asshole.
That's not much of an apology, Theo. I give that a 2.
Well, I don't feel that insincere. I don't, it's not a thing for me. So I guess it's that I don't feel sorry for it, but it's the only theme related one that I have. Think of. Yeah.
Well, I have one that's sort of travel related. So
all right, let's hear it.
Many, many years ago, when I was dating someone who won't be named, he used to smoke a lot of pot, and we drove to Nag's Head, to the Outer Banks for a weekend or something. And
he forgot where he was going?
No. On the way back, we stopped at a Mexican restaurant, and I had a couple margaritas, and I was driving because it was my car, and I drive my car. So on the way back from Nag's Head, or wherever we were, I think it was Nag's Head, we stopped at this Mexican restaurant, and I had a couple of margaritas, and he, being an alcoholic, had probably a lot more than that to drink. And I was speeding, as was my wont at the time. I was probably 21, 22, maybe. Approximately 20, maybe. And we got pulled over by a cop. And I had been drinking a little bit more than I probably should have. And he had been drinking. And not only that, but he was drinking beer in the car, in the passenger seat. And he was throwing beer cans on the floor. So... You are
kidding.
I'm 100% serious. And as we were pulled over, he was drinking a can of beer, and he reached out the window and poured out the beer. And the cop obviously could see all this from behind us. And I was mortified and terrified. And I pulled over, and the cop came up and was standing at my window and wanted to see my driver's license and registration. So I reached over to the glove compartment and pulled everything out of the glove compartment and was leafing through it, looking for my license or my registration and insurance or whatever. And as I was leafing through it, I leafed through a baggie of weed.
Oh my fuck! This just gets worse and worse.
Oh, just wait.
If I saw this in a movie, I'd be like, "Oh, come on!"
And I kept going through it, pretending that it wasn't there, because I was just like, "What am I going to do?" And I found the registration and whatever, and I handed it to the cop, and the cop was like to my boyfriend, "Get out of the car." But I thought he was talking to me, so I got out of the car. And the cop had gone around to my boyfriend's side of the car by this point, so I walked around to my boyfriend's side of the car. I mean, thank God this was like 1990 or whatever, and not now, or I would be on the ground at this point. But he told my boyfriend, it's a bad idea to have beer cans in the car. Somebody could get the wrong impression. And he wrote me.
What does that mean? I guess empty beer cans, they might think you were drinking in your car. Okay, right? Okay.
And then he said to me, I'm going to write you a ticket. I'll be right back. And he wrote me a ticket, and he left. And I have never been so grateful to a human being as I even am to this day to that man, because he could have taken my car. He could have arrested me. He could have arrested my boyfriend, which fine, do it. But my boyfriend, my former boyfriend, owes me an apology for that, because that was bullshit.
He totally, I mean, first of all, there's so much to say, but I thought you were going to say, and you had never paid that ticket yet.
Oh, no, I paid that ticket. I paid that ticket so fucking fast. And I wrote a thank you note on the ticket.
I mean, this is the difference that, like, had you been a guy?
Yeah, or black?
Well, black, you would have been murdered. I mean, that just, right. It goes without saying that white privilege is completely at play here. But also is the privilege of being a pretty young girl driving a car, right? Because, of course.
He was definitely generous.
I just would have been in jail. I'd be in jail to this day.
Yeah.
So how much... Okay, so if that happened to me today, the person that I was with, I would break up with that moment.
Yeah, I didn't.
Like, they wouldn't even be drinking in my car, right? But I know. But that's today as a 26-year-old. Right. As a 21-year-old, I probably would have allowed that to happen. And I probably would have been the person with the beer can at my feet, too.
I did end up breaking up with him, but not until much later.
And for something completely innocuous, like he'd never put the lid back on the peanut butter jar?
No, he ruined my house. So when I went to Italy for the summer, and when I came back, he had been living in my house because of whatever reason. He had been living in my apartment, and he totally destroyed it. So that was the end for me. Totally legitimate. Also, he had been... Oh, let's not go there.
Okay.
This is a podcast not about my former sex life or whatever.
Hey, we could have one. I could interview you. You could just tell me how crap it could be. To all the boys I've loved before. That's a movie.
My favorite boyfriend.
Perfect.
Between the two of us, we probably have enough information for a long time. So.
Jesus Christ. I mean, we could easily put out 52 episodes. I mean, no problem.
Let's not do that, though.
Let's not do that, right? Because my current husband.
Your first husband.
Listen, first and only, legally.
Yeah.
Who's still alive.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I don't know. Arsenic looks a lot like sugar. I'm sorry. Anyway, on that note, what? Nothing.
I think we're done for today. So thank you, everyone, for listening to us. We have enjoyed this podcast very much, this episode. I think we've covered all of our regular spots. Do we have any corrections? Any
How dare you? You mean, are we righter about something than we were last week?
Are we more right about something than we were last week?
I will say this, that this morning I woke up to a text between you and our producer where he corrected something about us and is going to edit it out of the show. And
yes, but we don't need to discuss that because it's really embarrassing.
Oh, I think it's great.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, great. So although we are like so everybody, you can hang up now or go off because, the podcast is essentially over. But this is golden. So in our last week's episode, which is yet to be released, our producer caught a factual error wherein we said that World War II was about fighting communism, basically something like that. And, I'm going to say this. We speak to each other in a shorthand, and we know each other, right? And so if I say, hey, how are you feeling today? And you say, I'm kind of red. I know exactly what that means. I don't need further explanation. And if I do, I'm going to say something like, is it a brown red or an orange red?
Right.
And so we could, so yes, you can say something completely inaccurate. I could say something completely inaccurate. And we know the other one knows, and we're just like trying to get to the point. And sometimes the inaccuracy is the point.
Yeah.
So I was quite surprised to find out that we were allied with the communists during World War II. And I had a moment where I was like, I thought we were the good guys.
Yeah.
We were fighting with so the Germans were the good guys because they were fighting against the communists? Are we the bad guys?
And then we remember when Germany invaded Russia, and that was a big disaster. So then we're like, oh yeah, okay. We were on the side of the Russians in World War II.
Yeah.
And we were thinking about World War I, though. That's why we said it wrong, because we were thinking about World War I.
They're essentially the same war because, we're separated by a 20-year gap, and the causal, World War I was never really ever settled, and
that's kind of it's all the same.
Archduke of Ferdinand.
Still fighting World War I. Only it's in Iraq.
We're still fighting the Civil War. We're still fighting. We're still fighting.
Yikes! All right.
Yes. And on that note, we'll keep fighting for you, America, and the world.
Happy spring break, America, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
We're going to have to look at a calendar and try and, get a show that's lined up with a holiday.
Yeah, that would be good. We did Christmas. That was good.
We did, but we did it as an emergency bonus episode.
Yeah. Okay, on that note, let's quit.
We'll leave.
So thank you, everybody. Happy day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Apologies Accepted, the podcast.
You can find links to the articles and the sources in the show notes.
To submit an apology or find out more, visit us at apologiesaccepted.net, where you can also find our merchandise.
We're on Twitter at Apologies Accepted.
And on Instagram at apologies.accepted.
You can support our important work at Patreon.com/Apologies Accepted.
And fuck Facebook.
Bye.
Bye. do I turn this fucking thing off? Where's my mouse?